series about green tech startups, and the series will be held by Emin Askerov. Emin has been driving startups in the field of energy transition for the last 10 years. Hello, Emin.
Hello, Maria, and thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here and very happy that we finally make this interactive engagement.
Right, absolutely. So I would have said that Emin is my guest today, but maybe better to say that I'm your guest, Emin, as you are leading the new series.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Maria, but I definitely need you to help me start this up.
Yes. So, okay, here we go. So we named the series "What's Up with Startups." I'm afraid my pronunciation doesn't make that slight difference between what's and what's, but anyway. So today we'll introduce you, Emin, the NEAH space for this series and the content of coming episodes, I hope. According to the title, maybe you plan to speak about green tech innovations, venture capital, promoting new technologies, something like that. But why do you personally find it crucial and interesting, and what have led you to this topic?
Well, this first kickoff, I would say the first installment of our series, we think we should really kind of try to look into why is this important. And personally, for me, I mean, it started like in 2009. That's when I kind of fell into this rabbit hole of startup world. Around that time, I launched my first startup, and sure enough, it failed. So since then, I've been leading another 4 startups, and I would say they're completed startups. So the current success ratio is 3 to 5. So 2 failed, 3 succeeded. And I would say out of this 5, 4 were strictly, you could call them energy transition startups. So that I wasn't traditional energy generation, wind power, lithium-ion batteries, solar. And currently I'm running several other startups, all of them, some of them I'm consulting. In one, I'm a co-founder, and all of them are focused on energy transition. So around, say, 2018, I realized I want to focus my career on the problem of climate change. But before that, I just cruised along, as most people probably do. You just, go from one job to another, see which one pays the most. And then, but after I finished the wind energy startup, I thought, well, this looks kind of interesting. I mean, it gives you a sense of purpose. You're not just making money for yourself, but you're actually doing something that is changing the world, even in a small sense, but it does. So, and I thought then, okay, if I want to focus on the climate change, I mean, I'm just a single guy. What can I do? How do I maximize my effect of what I'm doing? I'm no engineer, I'm no legal or finance guy. So I realized that I can work with startups, I can do startups, and that they can have a huge leverage on the climate change problem. I can leverage the power of startups to fight this problem. So, for example, the wind energy startups that we did, there was like, before 2016, there was no wind energy industry in Russia. So we led an effort, launched business within Rosatom for the wind energy, and now there is wind turbine manufacturing, there are wind farms coming up. So that's a clear impact. Like you focus your efforts in one place, and they have it like quite substantial impact. So this ability to change reality is what I like about startups. That's what fascinates me. And in this series, I really want to dig into the experience of startups in energy transition, because most of the time when we look at our news feed, then we see like the bright side of the startups. Oh, look, this is so nice technology, new technology that we have with this startup has just raised a lot of money. So it's all very polished. but I know from my experience that it's not so, like 90% of the time. And I really want to dig into that. And I want to, together with people from startups, together with investors, clients of the startups, to see how they work, how they grow. And because this will have impact. It will have impact not in some long-term future, but it will have impact like in coming years very fast. And you, Maria, you're also part of a startup, the New Energy Advancement Hub, which is also a startup in energy transition. And I want to thank the New Energy Advancement Hub for this opportunity. So let's start by you telling me a little bit about your startup. How did you start in it?
Still, you start to lead the series. That's right. I'm your guest today. Yes, right. So yes, NEAH, the New Energy Advancement Hub, can be called a startup. Actually, then it is an edtech startup. So in the modern educational formats. So we are a young team gathered by Tatiana Mitrova, and we are focused primarily on energy transition. So edtech plus green tech, I suppose. So what we do, we strive to educate future leaders and transition leaders and energy transition professionals, experts, and to build some capacity for interaction between stakeholders of these processes. We have already launched some products and projects. I wouldn't maybe dive deeply into detail now, but all our social networks and our site are open, and we'll provide the links below this video on YouTube. And it's evident that we like to organize some online events and to gather experts and to discuss different interesting and fascinating things, like startups in energy transition, for example. And thank you that you agreed to do it with us. Yes, it's for the first time when we want to make a series of events, and for us it's also a very fascinating thing. I wouldn't say
it's a way of life. So it's a startup is always a way of life. It becomes you always start something new.
Actually, I haven't thought of these activities like of a startup, but yes, now I see you're right. What I hear from you, that's to change the reality, and that it is not always so polished. Yes, maybe it will be not a reality show, but still, yes, I agree absolutely that we need to be more fair and to be trustful. We need more realistic vision of what is happening inside and how it all works, all the mechanisms maybe. And I hope you will open them to the public and show them somehow what is inside this black box. Why you said that the startups is a kind of leverage, yes, to the energy transition, and besides that, it is not a long-term instrument, but we need the result. Well, maybe not immediately, but in few years. Why? How it works?
So first of all, it's the nature of the energy transition that's happening now. We have to look at it and understand it clearly, and then we can say what role the startups play here. So the energy transition that we are going through is not the first one. It's I think it's the fourth energy transition that our civilization is going through. And in every energy transition that happened, like when we moved from the physical power of our hands, our bodies, to we moved to the coal-fired, like the steam engine, and then we went to the oil and then to gas and so on. Every transition was driven by the fact that we found how to get more energy quicker, cheaper, yes, and it was like exponential. So you couldn't, even people who were witnessing that energy transition, say that a couple of centuries ago, they were looking, and then there's of course drawn cart, and then there is a train speeding by. There's a completely different energy being put to work. But this, and all the time it became cheaper. I mean, I like there's an example in the book of Bill Gates about the energy transition. And he says, well, in the United States, a quarter of gasoline is cheaper than a quarter of milk. So that's how cheap it is. I don't know about now, but at the time of the writing of the book, he wrote it about in COVID times, that was the case. So, but this energy transition is different. In a sense, we're not really transitioning to a new energy source. Like there's no nuclear fission. I mean, we don't have any
don't we? Okay.
No, we don't have any new energy source, which is like cheaper, denser, gets you more packs more punch than say gas-fired turbine. No, we don't. The like solar and wind, they can compete on price now with other energy sources, but they do not have the flexibility, capacity, or density like we have with oil or gas. Not yet, at least. But this time we're going through energy transition because we realized that for all other energy transition, there was a cost we didn't account for. We didn't account for externalities. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we didn't account for the damage that that other fuels do to the planet, and that was not, so to say, as economists say, factored in the price. And it still is not factored in the price. So this energy transition is about moving not to better energy source per se, it's moving to a clean energy source. And that makes it a bit difficult. Why? Because in the normal energy transition, I think it's in the book of Václav Smil, famous energy expert, and he says that, it takes like 2 to 3 generations, like 57 years, for a new resource to capture the original, the large share of the market. So
do we possess them?
Yeah, and it happens when, the new energy source is cheaper. So everybody's happy to switch to it. No, we don't have that. I mean, look at any IPCC projections, IEA, whatever. We don't have that time. So we have to actually do it 2 or 3 times as fast. But at the same time, we cannot offer, okay, look at this. It's not like twice as cheap. It's not twice as cheap as oil or gas. It's not. Or it's like more flexible. No, it's not. So that's the challenge.
Any way out.
However, yes. However, this startup culture, you can trace the startups. I think one of the first true startups were Hewlett Packard, in 1930s when they actually started tinkering with it, computers, and in the garage when they say the 2 guys. That's your archetypical startup. It was quite a long time ago, but only this century did the startups gain so much prominence. And we seen over course of something like 20 years, maybe a little bit more, our lives being transformed dramatically. I remember clearly in 1999, well, there was Google already, I think. I was one of the first users, but no, there wasn't. There wasn't, I think. Amazon was just starting out. Apple, it was, but it was a niche company. So, and of course there was no Tesla. It was just starting out. So, and they really changed the way we live today, completely. And it took them 20 years. So, but can the energy transition startups repeat that?
Well, okay. So your stake is that they can.
I don't know. That's the thing. I see there are a few problems. There are a few differences between the IT startups and ET startups. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And first and foremost, we are dealing with hardware here most of the time, solid things, silicon, steel, aluminium, sometimes very big and heavy things like, wind turbines, huge blades and so on. So you basically, if you look at the climate tech startups, most of them are doing something, either with chemistry or with some physical things, electric cars, I don't know, anything. So and if you're doing something physical, if you need a garage, like a big one, and then you need some equipment, and then you need to put some money to buy the materials you need. It's not enough to get a top-line computer and hack away at it for hours. You just need your time for the IT. So IT guys, they need time and a decent workstation. ET guys need a big enough workshop, sometimes quite big and quite expensive, because if you go like in startups in chemistry, in battery chemistry, or in all these various coverings for solar panels, or something else. So or floating, for example, solar power stations. So you do need a bit of hardware to work with, and that's just financially, it's more difficult. You can't delay paying your IT team if they really believe you. Like, I know we're gonna work now next half a year. We won't get any pay, but we're gonna make it big then. But suppliers will probably only ship you anything if you pay them 100% in advance. Right. So that's one. And the second thing is there's a different market we're trying to address here. I mean, most of the IT startups, the ones that we know about and the successful ones, they target us, like people, final customers. It's a huge market, usually. Anybody with an access to a smartphone, and that almost everybody now, they can be your customer. You can reach to them immediately. And you try to make their lives easier, more convenient. Okay, so you can find yourself a husband or a wife, or you can get food ordered, and so on and so forth. So yeah, they work with convenience. Now, the ET startups, they have a different market, and they actually work against convenience. It's convenient to get a plastic cup with your coffee, right, or like a paper cup with your coffee, but not really environmentally friendly. So when you work against that, you run into some problems. And but the ET startups are mostly, they work to B2B market. They work other businesses. They work for energy companies, oil companies. They do. They work for big industrial holdings, steel manufacturers. They are like some, take green hydrogen, like the most hyped up thing I've ever seen. Yeah. And who are the customers? Not you and I are not going to buy hydrogen for our houses. No, we will probably never see it in our life, only if we buy a hydrogen car. But then most of the hydrogen will be bought, like if you look at the hydrogen market, most of the hydrogen will be bought by industrial customers. So, and these guys are not really keen on startups, regardless of what they say.
Okay.
well, first of all, because if you ever try to sell something to a big corporate, you come, and there's a process. Even the big guys like Northvolt and so on, even the modern companies, they have a process of customer certification, of supplier certification. So they look at you and say, okay, will you be there in 5 years? You haven't been around even for 1 year. So a lot of times you're just a startup, probably you won't be. So we cannot start buying from you, because in 5 years time, if you go bankrupt, go out of business, we need to, remake every process again. That's expensive. Can you give us banking guarantee?
Oh no, stop it.
No, of course not. And then, so this is a different customer. For you and I, we can just, we buy something, we don't like it, we throw it away, we write a bad feedback on Google. But we're not these guys. So they do have a different market to address, and they do face different challenges here. And software is cheaper in a sense, even if you are a B2B software provider.
In production,
if you can, yes, it's easier to introduce, it's easier to test, and then easier to uphold, in future. But
you mean to join the market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to join the market.
To launch it to the market. Okay.
So for the ET startups, I would say most of the time is difficult. And that's what I see. That's what I found very difficult. And really, most of the time, when we were really successful, we could immediately match the demand with supply, just even before we start manufacturing anything. So that's a bit difficult. And I think there's also one other thing, which is difficult for the startups in energy transition. When they invented things like Facebook and messengers, I mean, you could before just send an SMS. I mean, nobody cares to send an SMS now, right? When was the last time you sent an SMS? You probably don't remember.
I only get these special codes from my bank.
Yeah, but I did send an SMS last year because I went to very old hardcore gym, and the trainer there, he was an old hardcore guy. He didn't use all this fancy smartphone. So he said, "I have this phone. You can send me SMS."
Nokia.
yes, something like Nokia. Send me SMS. No WhatsApp. So we make these startups, they make our lives easier. So we see immediate benefit. Okay, it's easy. It's more convenient. I like it. But it looks nice. I just like the way it looks. So it has some fancy feature which I like. So
and it's easy to install. It costs nothing for me.
Yeah, it is to install. Costs nothing for me. And then, so basically, every time you get something new, it's usually a better version of what you already have. So you see immediate value in this.
Yeah.
Okay, it's easier, cheaper, more convenient, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go for the energy transition technologies, you almost always have a fossil fuel-based alternative, which is cheaper and more convenient to use for the current, take hydrogen. Yeah, you have the gray hydrogen from coal or from gas. There you go. It's cheaper, easier to get than green hydrogen.
Why to make it green?
Why should we switch? I mean, you have to do some convincing, a lot of convincing, and get the government involved. Generally, as a business, it is very hard to convince your customer. Just look at the electric cars. I mean, it took quite a while for people to consider switching to electric cars. And still, okay, the electric cars have been booming in sales last 2 years, but still, a lot of people I ask and say, well, electric car may be nice, but I have range and anxiety, maybe later.
So yes, it's another kind of a customer pattern.
It is.
To drive
it
electric.
Is another kind. Yes, it's another customer pattern. It's not immediately obvious why you need it as a person. I mean, if you're not really environmental freak, you care about environment so much, if you're minding your own business, why should you switch? It is a difficult sell, marketing-wise. So I think there's also the energy transition is not only about the energy transition, it's about, transitioning from this short-term, person-centric thinking to long-term and more wide, even planet-wise thinking, holistic thinking. That we should take care of externalities. And I don't see how we can do that faster than in 2 or 3 generations to transition in thinking. That's the point. And this is what makes this particular energy transition and this particular and startups' role in this energy transition so interesting, because it's challenging.
So I see you're advocating actually ET startups because they are the most active, like a locomotive to this process, because we need to move it somehow, and it's very hard.
It is, because nobody really would do it otherwise. I mean, governments do the bits. They do the bit, but government can do only so much. Yeah, governments have already made all the pledges they can. Like, we'll phase out fossil fuels. I mean, they even making even more pledges now before the COP28. So they say, okay, let's just phase out completely. Let's just stop in, like the EU. Yeah, I think that's the recent news. I mean, yesterday. So let's just sign the agreement, stop investing in any new oil projects. Just stop. Yeah, because these investments have been actually going up recently. So that's one. There's a joint like China-America resolution that they will like triple, I think, renewable energy. So the government's already been doing the bit for quite a while. They've been throwing money at it. But as we all know, governments are good at setting targets, good at, setting the general direction where you need to go, but quite bad in executing. And that's almost
they're made not
always,
for this. Yes, they are policymakers.
They're policy. They made all the policies that we need. Basically, they exist. Even like in our favorite expert literature, which we all read, is we have the steps scenario now, stated policies. Yeah. Okay, it's not the best scenario. So you usually use it as a baseline scenario, but even that scenario has to be done somehow.
Yeah.
You need to actually do it. You see, and I see that startups are instrumental here because the government says, okay, this is where we want to be, and this immediately identifies you the area of opportunity where you need to put your effort, because a lot of times government actually put money into this effort. So you can follow that. I mean, for example, Freya, the European Union, the startup that they make batteries, and they announced that we're going to relocate from Luxembourg, our offices, our headquarters, from Luxembourg to United States. We see United States have been more supportive of battery investment. So we're not going to build our second Norway factory. There you go. So this is one example, but still there is a long way before the government said something, but then sometimes your client is government, but most often than not, your clients are other corporations, big ones. And you have to think how you work with them. And that's what I want to focus.
Great. Yes. So we'll look forward, because it's for me personally, it's very interesting. And I see on the thread that feedback from our participants who listen to this stream. Yes, they said that this exciting series, can't wait to join. You're welcome.
Thank
yes.
You. Thank you.
Actually, before the questions from the audience, I'm not over yet. Also, it's maybe the most important and the most serious reason what the people like old-fashioned energy men say, yes, that it's not economically feasible. All that new energy, all that energy transition, because if to be verified by the economic reasons, it is not feasible. So, and we should think not only about the climate and the clean energy, but about the economy and about the incomes and about the budget, and that's it. I will not even ask you to say something for it, well, against actually it, but why do these people like startuppers, what do they find there? How do they feel? Why do they think that it will work? Are they like, it's like an adventure? It's risky.
Well,
them.
first of all, yes, yeah. First of all, yes, you do have to like an adventure if you want to be in a startup. You do have to, like to take risks and go where people didn't go before you, or went but didn't come back. But actually, the arguments that are put forward by a lot of critics, or not critics, I would say, but people who are more conservatively positioned, is actually not new. And one of the interesting examples about this kind of attention to startups and the attitude to startups is a famous case of the inkjet printer. Is when the HP actually in-house developed an inkjet printer, and they brought it to their investment committee and said, look, we have this nice inkjet printer. It's not laser anymore. Can we make it? And people say, what's the print? What's the price per page? What's the print rate? I mean, the speed of it. And it was all like completely awful. It could not be compared to laser printer. They were cheaper, faster. And so, well, who's going to need that? It's just too expensive, you know. It's just expensive. So that was the same case. Who's going to get it? In the end, we're all using the inkjet printer now. Yes, because there was a niche for that. There was a niche which people didn't know it exists. Now, what we have here in energy startup is a bit different, of course. It's harder to find niche, which, you know, we didn't know exists. Not only the reason because the existing services, the existing products that we use, like normal cars or, I don't know, energy system, we do not price the externality into it. Some people try to advocate for, look, if our national health system spends billions of dollars each year on treating people with, lung problems, with breathing problems, which are caused by, the internal combustion engines. And connecting that is difficult. Anecdotally, yes, but I mean, to put actually price on that, that's politically.
But that is the job of regulators and governments, actually. When you say they're doing their jobs good, well,
they're doing the jobs. I would say they're doing the jobs as well as they can.
Yes.
Some do more, some do less. When you're in office, you have to mind. You usually want to stay there, so you have to be careful.
Well, I've been a civil servant. Okay. I respect those people. They all are really doing what they can. You're right.
Yeah, and that. But anyway, we're getting off a little bit away from startups. So now it's the time when it's actually we do have this shift, in the market. And for the startup I'm working on now, I did the research and I looked at like meta research. So I looked at the different research that people did into how customers view products which are, environmentally friendly. And most important, are they ready to pay for them more than they would pay for normal products? And the interesting thing is that they're ready. Like in China, I think like something like 43% people ready to pay like up to 5% more for a product which is environmentally friendly. Like I think in Emirates here, I think it's closer to 80. If I'm not mistaken, I will find it. I can even share it later.
Were these just polls? People were questioned, or some more tricky
no, it was
research?
polls. It was like polls. People would actually do polls, and then they would do. They were different firms, and that were like BCG, Pricewaterhouse, other companies. They would do it like in the United States, New Zealand, Australia, China, Indonesia, of course, European countries. And it was are you ready to say like up to like 3 to 5% people ready to pay? But there's one interesting thing also about that Bill Gates talks about is the green premium. We take a similar product and what it costs to make it green, to make it sustainable. And you can calculate this green premium for almost any product. And now you can like as a startup, you can say, okay, if my green premium for my product is like in the range of 2 to 5%, well, people will buy it. if I go B2C. And if I go B2B, even the corporations can buy because there is a market for that. They can pass it down, and being sustainable now, being, caring for environment and doing it in some real way, not just imagining that you're doing, not just marketing, it's getting more and more important.
Yes, but actually,
well,
I'm
sorry, we can go into the details,
but not today.
how the companies can. I would want to get a startup in this, which has a high green premium, and then actually try to get them.
I would like to argue. I do not believe that it's possible just to build something extra to that black box, say yes, of my product, of my production, and that will be green. No, I need to make just another box, another technology, another product, just to replace the old one with a new one. But I may be wrong, and maybe it depends. It depends. Okay. So back to our topic. What would you, so you're advocating green startups, and will you, in this coming series, will you make some disclosures of your research and of a kind of reality show of your startups, or will you invite people from whom? Investors or startuppers, or what are your plans?
Well, let me say first what we will not do. Because when people talk about startups, they say, okay, it's money, but money. It's about how to raise capital. How do we get to the next round of funding? Well, I subscribe to several news feeds on that, and all the startups talk about is money, how we get next funding. All perfectly well, but I don't want to focus on venture capital. So venture capital will not be
excluded.
It will be excluded. Well, first of all, there's so many information out there on venture capital. I mean, if you really want to dig into that, there are huge numbers of this, Telegram channels, YouTube videos, courses. I mean, anything you can do. You can go just in 2 months, know everything there is need to know about venture capital. How do you get it? Well, venture capital is important. It gets you from the idea in your head to working product. Yes, but to me, it seems a bit strange when you, as an investor, you invest in some guy, and then some team, and then in 3 years, sometime later, you sell that company, your stake, to some other investor, but the company still is not making any money. It's still losing money, but you make a profit as an investor. That really reminds me something like a game of musical chairs. You just, or the hot potato, you just pass it, okay, take it, and then you make it. So there's a lot of marketing involved in the process to inflate the price of the stock, and then
that's why you are not interested.
That's why I'm not interested, because there is existing infrastructure for that is good enough. I mean, you can apply for different programs. You can get into a lot of, every country has several places where you can go and try and get some seed funding for you. There are angel investors, so there's a huge number. But the interesting thing, when you actually get the product and it's working and it's nice, yes, it's working, and then you need to get a client. And then you need to make it not one thing or two things. You need make 100 things and then 10,000 things. Now that's a completely different challenge. In my experience, I was talking to people who would set up factories, wind turbines, solar, batteries, and they would say, it's not a guarantee that when you set up a factory, it's actually going to work. No. So I heard stories about how people closed the factory because they couldn't get the production going, or they couldn't get the rate of the, forgot the name for that, when actually the quality of the quality of your product deteriorates fast. So you have to half of your output you have to throw away, basically. And they couldn't get it done. And that's for established products, which people been doing for some time. When you speak about new product, a lot of times you have to invent a new manufacturing procedure for that. So there's nothing like that. So you need to come up with your own equipment. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's also
to make it with your hands. Yes.
Make it with your hand. Make that equipment. So actually, the semiconductor industry started out just like that. Yeah. And it's only later they got specialized manufacturers, specialized suppliers of equipment, manufacturing equipment. So this is what I want to look at, because this is where you have a good product, it's so nice, and then you announce on social media that you raised another round, that you have deployed your prototype, it's working, it's perfect, and the news. And in the news, the journalists say, "Oh, this is here goes the killer of that technology, and then they forget about you. And in 5 years' time, you go into liquidation because you couldn't get more than 2 orders for your thing." I met a lot of people who said, "I made this thing. It's so nice. It's working so well, but why nobody's buying it?" Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to dig in. So I want to talk with people on different side of this equation. So with investors, why do you invest in it? How do you see that? How do you see a payoff? With clients, like big corporations, why don't you buy that? What holds you up? What's the major difficulty? Like accelerators, how can you help? How do you help? What makes it successful? And of course, the startups, because especially those who manage to, pass this valley of death. There are a few of them, but they say, okay, so they could share the story, share what was crucial, how they actually made it, because there is no lack of talent. People come up with ideas, what they can manufacture all the time. And they even put it together with their hands. They find some money for that. They make it, and then nothing happens. We talked with Tatiana Mitrova once about this problem, and she said to me, "Look, it looks like we have all the innovations we need. They are there. The technologies are there. They're ready, and we have all the declarations and commitments we need. Everybody's saying they're committed to fighting climate change." Even the Saudis are telling that. So everybody is saying, yes, we will help, we will fight, we will invest. But there's still something we lack. And I think what we lack is exactly this part where the startups go out of their, sand pits where they play with the technology, the tinker, and they try it out to work as a real business, trying to become cash positive. So I would focus on that, and I would try to have guests and talk with them like we talked to me today, and see their insight. Because that's, I found in my experience, this is where you can find real gems. If you just analyze it from the news or some reports, there's usually something missing, something crucial missing. In all this very careful wording,
Yes.
But in such conversations, people open up and they say what really kind of drove them, or what really made the difference. So I will also look into some particular cases with which were already done, and deconstructed. Say, okay, why was that? Why did that happen? What were the reasons? How we can learn from it. Because for me, it is fascinating. I do want to learn from this series as well. It is a good opportunity for me to approach people and just plain out asking, "Oh, why don't you talk to me now? Let's have a video record."
Yeah, great. We'll be all the spectators of your show. And yes, I believe it's interesting. So to investigate and to show out, yes, that inner mechanisms, why that maybe that secret ingredients, why how can they get scaled and successful, really. Why some of them are successful and some of them go bankrupt. And concerning all that features and specific you mentioned before, and with that all the difficulties, I start to think that it's impossible. But as we start the series, you don't think you think it's possible, and you will show us.
I know it's possible because I said that even I did a few which were successful, and there are a lot of successful startups which have been raising like billions now, but there are still many more which are out there. So, and they deserve, a chance. And
Yeah,
maybe we could, some of these talks will prove useful to people who listen and look.
and besides to change the reality, as you say, is your ambition, yes, we need to scale it up also to make this process kind of massive.
It is. That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of this talk, that to scale it up, to scale up the startups, to scale up our knowledge of them, and to disseminate as much as we can.
Yeah, great. So what are the immediate plans for the coming series, coming episodes?
So plan to have talks once in 2 weeks. We'll try to invite guests for that. There's a list of guests I have that we are, considering which one we invite, and then we have to negotiate if people are available or not. And we'll put up the advertisement. Just try to put it sooner or later than later, and have a live conversation with them, and maybe some follow-ups afterwards. If the audience has some questions, and we can come back on that. Especially the guests, they can ask the guests questions. So that's the plan, and I plan to do it. Let's try to keep at it for a few episodes. See if it takes traction, if this startup takes traction, and see what it gets. I think already in the New Energy Advancement Hub community, there are quite a lot of people who interact with startups in one way or another. I know I've been connected to them. And for full disclosure, I also took your course, your course on energy transition.
Great.
So yes, and thanks. It was really illuminating and insightful. So these are the plans. So we're just going to get to work.
Great. So before we say goodbye today, there are some questions from Vladimir Golubetnikov. Emin Askerov, thank you for sharing your views. I have two questions. The first, where do you see the biggest potential for ET startups to make an impact, disrupt traditional business models? That is, in which technologies?
I think the technology should be there should be a technology readiness level of 6 to 8. First of all. So there's a nice instrument made by International Energy Agency, you probably know about it, and they rank all of the energy transition technology on the tier A, right? And if you just look at them, there are many. I mean, I personally focus on batteries and energy, solar, wind. There's not much actually to do in solar and wind now, but there still is. Batteries are more interesting in the sense that a lot of technological progress happening there. So, and these will have a big impact in my view, and they will have big impact very soon. Mm-hmm. So, if you can make it a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, then we are at the tipping point of this industry. So
process, yes.
Yeah, if you just push it a little bit, and then bam, then they can really become, the mass scale technologies. Other more obscure ones, I would say, would be carbon offsets, like the markets for voluntary carbon offsets.
Yeah, so that's not the hardware, but still.
That's not the hardware. That's not right. But this is a way. For me, I see the voluntary carbon market. It's how everybody, like everyone who cares a little bit about the environment, can participate in helping people who actually do something about it with money. Because convincing the bank or convincing the government, convincing the supplier to cash out for some strange technology is difficult. Convincing people to part with, a couple of dollars to help the environment is easier.
You mean it's easier?
Of course. I mean, you tip your driver in the taxi.
Oh, yes.
You don't have to, but you tip. You tip your waiter.
Yes, and you practice a habit.
You practice. It's people are okay, to just here's some extra. Thank you very much.
Here you are.
Yes. So I think that getting the general public to participate in financing the projects in the climate tech is can have massive impact. Like massive. We would tap into funds which are like huge. And I think even now there's like an article in The Economist which say the current generation, they save quite a lot, and they save in cash. So there is a place where we can look for
money.
We
need just to utilize some part of this
budget.
Yes,
the trick is getting there.
Okay. Yes, the second question, yes? Yeah, the second. Since many ET startups are capital intensive, what do you see as the main source of funding for them?
Advance payment. I would say that's the best. Advance payment.
You are talking like a startup, yeah.
Yeah, advance payment works best. It's
well, it's the model, but not the source.
It stimulates, a lot of people when they get paid in advance. But it either advance payment or you have an offtake. That's the most difficult part. I mean, it's very difficult to get it, but if you get it, that's what makes you a success. And sometimes it is very difficult. And not sometimes. I mean, almost always is very difficult to get some offtake. And but at least if you get at least some commitment, even like an MOU or something, that can help you. But most of the time, you won't get any like bank lending or something if you don't, or even you won't get the equity financing if you don't show. Okay, here's the customer. Here he is. That's what he wants. He bought the same thing, or he's buying this thing from me. Is the contract. It can have all sorts of safeguards built in it, but ultimately, if you have a customer and he's willing to pay for that, that's the way to go here, because otherwise it's really difficult to, there's actually a third way. The third way, if you can tap a corporation. If you tap a corporation, that's what I did in two times. And if you tap a corporation for the money, even when there is no offtake, even there is no clear client, but the corporation thinks that this is a strategically important bet to make, then you can go. So this is the three things: the advance payment, the offtake, and the corporation with a mission.
I doubt that if I were a startup, that I would like to deal with a corporation. But if I need money, well, it's a tricky point.
Most of the time, you have no choice. And
yes,
if your product green industrial heat, sorry, there's no way you can avoid.
Yeah, right.
It's big
not B2C.
Yes,
okay.
Not B2C.
So it's first, very fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to this series. Dear friends, dear participants, you're welcome to enroll for every episode, for every coming episode of this series. With only one click, there is a special button on the landing page of the series, and then you'll be updated and informed on every new episode coming from Emin and his guests. And so I suppose that's it for today. And yes, thank you very much, Emin. We have started the series. I like it, this start very much, and I would like to wish all the best for their, how many, 4 startups you are now working together with,
yes.
Working with, yes, and I like that like motto, yes, that startup as an adventure. It's a kind, if you treat it as a kind of game and not just the challenge and the problem and an issue. Yes, it's when I hear to you, it's a kind of not so difficult and not so, it is challenging, but still important, and it's a kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah,
and
I like it.
That's also what I want to share.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much for today. Yes, please keep updated to the new announcement of the Emin series. And goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.